I've done a video on this before, but I guess I'll talk about it again. When we give vaccines in the certain schedule they're given, that's been tested by the vaccine company. Sorry. It's overseen by scientists. It's reported to the FDA. It's reviewed. And it said, okay, good job. Thanks for doing all the tests. It looks like the outcomes are good. We know that in some cases doing placebo-controlled trial is not ethical because the disease that you're vaccinating against is extremely harmful and dangerous. So we know the diseases, especially the ones that have been around for hundreds, thousands of years, if you will. So this needs to be said. When we give vaccines, we know it's stressful for babies and children. It upsets them to get poked with a needle. And in that process of getting poked with a needle, it's going to release something called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. That can be measured without a needle by swabbing a person's cheek. They did a study doing that. In that study, they looked at the problem with how many vaccines can we give and cause more or less stress. And they thought, well, the more vaccines we give, is that more stressful? What was discovered was that if you give one vaccine, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 together, which sometimes we do give 5 together, especially if it's ketchup, it releases the same amount of stress hormone measured, again, with the cheek, so there's not an additional needle that stresses the kid out even more. So what we realized is it's more stressful to give multiple vaccinations spread out over time. Then there is a concern that if you have to go to the health department or to the doctor's office and you have to drive, every time you hop in your car with your kid, that's a risk. A person that commented on this very same idea of, spreading out vaccinations over time, is it safe or effective and beneficial? And the answer is no, no, and no. But this commenter brought up a good point. There's an inherent risk in coming back repeatedly for just one vaccine. Some of the vaccines are liquids that you drink. So will we do that one with one of the needle ones because it shouldn't be very stressful? It's just a liquid that they drink. That's rotavirus vaccine. Very well tolerated. In 18 years, I've only seen one adverse reaction out of probably 20,000, 30,000 doses at this point. So, there's inherent risk just with everyday life type stuff, getting in your car, driving to the doctor or the health department. So that's concerning. Then we go, okay, let's space all these vaccines out 2 to 6 months apart. It would take years just to get the first year's worth of doses. Years. And during that time, your child's at risk for those infections, especially whooping cough, which is highly infective and highly pathogenic to younger children, especially little babies. Then your child would be at risk for our good friend measles, which is going around right now in Texas and New Mexico. And it's getting closer and closer to being one of the worst measles outbreaks that we've had in decades, because we've already had a really bad one back in 2018, 2019. People forgot that was almost 1,500 cases of measles in Oregon. And the worst one before that was probably 400 in Ohio among a Amish community, also unvaccinated. We tend to have a short-term memory about these outbreaks, which is kind of disappointing. I wish people would remember how bad these are. I do. So that's stinky when you remember everything. Yay. But, back to the point, one of the risks of not vaccinating is that during that time that your kid is open to the disease and not protected, it can sneak through, and it's not good. And then maybe they're going to be okay, but maybe they make somebody else sick that's not going to be okay. So that's the other part of this. We purely ask people to be empathetic to others, that public health and doing your part to protect others is just as important as protecting your individual child. Even when there are risks, which there are very few risks with vaccination, very, very few. So please, get vaccinated on the same schedule that we recommend, because it's been studied and looked into. We've done all this. And yes, there's something to be said about we've already done this. It's just not necessary, and it's costly and time consuming, and it's not going to have the result that you expect. It's not. It's going to show they're safe.